Hello and welcome to Warhammer Wednesday. In this video I will be reviewing the Acastus Knight Porphyrion. If you've seen my unboxing then you'll know that this is a large model. It will set you back £320. It's a lot of money. On face value it would seem more than a Warhound Titan. Warhound Titan's 280 I think now, but then you definitely have to buy two £40 weapons, so the total cost of one of those would be 360. So it's not quite as much as a Warhound Titan, because you get the weapons with it. You get the rocket pod and all the rest of it, everything that you see here. Now it's not completely built, all the parts are ready to be sprayed and all the rest of it. What I like to do with my Knights is build them to a certain point and then spray them black, spray them metal, wash it, and then go on to all the detail. So that's why you're not seeing sort of like all of the the armour plates on here, and you're not seeing things like the banner. Also this front head section isn't glued, as you can tell. It's just held there on there by white tack. Hopefully that'll hold for the rest of the video. Build wise, absolutely beautiful kit to build. All the parts were made to a very high standard. Hardly any slippage at all. So you are paying premium price for a premium model. The instruction booklet is sort of full colour. It comes in one of the large Warlord Titan boxes, which is just fantastic. It had a lot more parts than I thought it would do. And dare I say it, probably more parts than a Warhound Titan. When you think that one of these weapon arrays, it's got 2 barrels, it's got 6 coils, a lens, supporting structure, and then another part here, a couple more cables at the back, a heat sink, another firing capacitor, something like that. There's lots of different parts. Typically on a Warhound Titan, that is your part. It's just one piece. You don't have to put the barrels in. You literally just have to glue these 2 parts on here, and that's it. I just thought I'd mention that these 2 weapon arrays are lots of parts in them. There's plenty of opportunity to magnetise things on this model too. I'll just turn him around a little bit, show you. Hopefully he'll sort of stay together. This is the rear. The model was about the size I was expecting, probably a little bit bigger than I was expecting. I'll show you some size comparisons later on in the video. I mean, maybe if you put some magnets in these hinge joints, drilled in and put the magnets, it may even be possible to magnetise this and have those hydraulic pistons move freely too, so you could close this missile array. There is a big elephant in the room, you can probably tell. I only have 1 exhaust stack. That's not because I'm mentally challenged and I completely forgot to do that. It's actually because Forge World packaged me 2 right exhaust stacks, item number 7 if you're wondering. I've already taken pictures and emailed them. Fingers crossed I'll get one in the next few days. But I wanted to give you the review as quickly as possible. I didn't want you to have to wait a few more days or a week or 2 to see this model sort of almost fully complete. So hopefully they'll send me the correct piece. But yeah, these things are still checked by a human at the end of the day, and if there's a human involved in any of the process, it's always going to be subject to sort of human error. So we'll just have a look at some of the other details sort of separately. So these weapons there, you can put a large magnet in there and slot one somewhere in there. It is hollow. If you just finger it, it's hollow in there, so you'd have to put a piece of sort of spare resin or plastic in there just to hold the magnet, and then there's a chance that could come detached at some point. You'd have to do the same on the other side. So it's not just a case of that solid and you could just put a magnet in there and attach it. There's going to be a bit of work involved in there. However, I suppose you could put a magnet into the plug of this weapon array and then try and fit a magnet in the socket somehow, but there you go. Anyway, this weapon array, lovely detail on here. You've got the heat sink, you've got this targeting sort of array. Pretty nice bit of kit in terms of the weapons. I would have thought that they'd create new weapons. If they do, I'll be gutted, because I'll probably have to rip these off after I've glued them into place. It's not really giving you many options of sort of magnetising it or of retaining any sort of like flexibility in terms of them. This top, I haven't glued it, so that I can detach that anytime. In there, I have put the chair and everything in there, but I have closed the hatch. Didn't come with a little pilot to sit on or anything like that, and I just thought it was a bit silly painting all the interior, and it's only like a command console and a chair when there isn't even a pilot in there. So I've glued that shut, but you can magnetise that'd be fine. This missile array, very easy to magnetise. I haven't. Just because I prefer these missiles. I've got them on, and I've got them on another Knight Titan and on my Reaver. I just prefer these sort of like cluster. And I know that these are the Iron Storm missiles according to the instructions, and these are the Helios. But in game terms, I'm sure anybody would be absolutely fine using them as the Helios missiles. And the Helios, they're 2 shots anyway, and you've only got 5 there. I know I'm nitpicking, but in theory, literally, you'd have 2 turns, and then he's pretty much going to use all of his missiles. He'd only have 1 missile left, wouldn't he? So he wouldn't get the 1 shot. Whereas these seems a bit more sort of feasible, firing 2 of those. Even though the Helios, they're designed to be sort of longer range and actually shoot planes out the sky and things. But then if you look at the Knights, their Sky Spear missiles are actually smaller. So it's an odd one. For this model, they're bigger. For another model, they're smaller, but it is what it is. Short story is that you can magnetise that if you wish. This little symbol here, you have to glue on. You could maybe magnetise that, but I've got some spare parts here. You can have a Mechanicum symbol. You can have, like, I think that's Free Blade symbol, and then I think that's Sons of Horus sort of symbol, or a Heresy sort of symbol. And then also, last 2 spare parts are the Autocannons. Again, very easy. You can put a magnet into each of those and stick them on. Hence me using the sort of anti-armour missiles all the time. This is mainly an anti-tank, anti-Titan walker vehicle. So really having the autocannons is there's just no need. And I think 2 las cannon shots at strength 9 with the range. Bearing in mind it's ballistic skill 5. I mean, if it was ballistic skill 4, I probably would be more inclined to magnetise these on, but with ballistic skill 5, 2's up to hit with the las cannons is, yeah, I mean, that can make all the difference. It can make the difference against a Warhound, for instance. Both those las cannon shots, they've got a very good chance of hitting, and then an even better than 50-50 chance of taking down the void shields, because they only need 3 or more to take down the void shields, and then you can sort of let rip with the Magna las cannons and the missile launcher, because it's Skyfire and Interceptor. But there you go. They're all the spare parts, just your missiles and your autocannons and a couple of icon symbols. Obviously, I haven't put the banner on between his legs because I want to sort of paint that separate, spray it separate. And then the back sort of armour piece, I haven't put that on there. And likewise with all of the other sort of knee armour. I mean, this thing has an absolute ton of armour. One thing I will say is definitely be very careful when you're gluing these sort of toe supports in to the ankle, because believe it or not, they have sort of different sized plugs. The front is just plain flat. The outside is 2, and this is slightly different than the inner armour and the rear, which have 3. So just bear that in mind if you're making the model. Not too bad, because you could just file them down and just glue it on anyway after you've sprayed it and washed it and things. And that's my preference for Titans. I'd rather just spray all the metal work, wash the metal work, get a really good dry brush and get all that detail, and then do these separate and glue them on, because otherwise you're never going to get to that detail behind it. Be wary of sort of like the ankle supports. They suggest you, this is just held by White Tack, Oh, right. They suggest that you leave that freely. I didn't want that jangling about, and it does move very freely in there. I can get a brush in and do some lens work and things on that, so it's not really an issue for me, and I can even get in and paint the rivets and wash the rivets and stuff. But you can do that. You could even magnetise on there, but it's up to you if you want to do that. Right, so that's all the spare parts, me looking at the individual pieces and things. What I'll do now is just show you some size comparisons. So first of all, I'm just going to compare it to a, he's probably going to be like aiming up or aiming sort of like that way, not like that or like that, like like Mr. Roboto kind of thing. But if I just move him over there, this is normal Space Marine. So yeah, he probably comes up to sort of like the ankle support, doesn't come up to the knee even. So that's him next to Space Marine. Contemptor Dreadnought, that again probably only just comes up to the knee for a Contemptor. Leviathan probably definitely would be up to the knee, I'd say. And then compared to your normal sort of vanilla Knight, I'd say, that's a good sort of size comparison. So he comes up to probably just higher than the hips, maybe. So maybe at a push up to his head. I'll just sort of move him there. Yeah, he's definitely, you know, could take a good swing at his knees at least, or maybe even ram the Reaper Chainsword up through the middle there. But there's a lot of armour plating and things. So yeah, just gives you some sort of idea. I think it fits in quite well. And then finally, we'll just compare him to a Warhound Titan. So I've sort of had to move models around a little bit just to sort of fit them in. But as you can see, a Warhound Titan is definitely taller. I mean, it depends on the legs. These legs are quite sort of upright. If you bent the legs a little bit, it'd probably be the same size. But if you're on the fence on this model thinking that it was taller or the same size as a Warhound, it basically isn't. The weapons are a lot higher, the head is a lot higher, the carapace structure, again this is dependent on the legs, is higher too. Not by a huge amount, I'd say. So probably sort of like the missile launcher and the top of the carapace is almost level. But it really depends on what you do with these legs. I mean, if you were to bend these legs, then they'd be quite equal size. The difference that you get though is sort of the gait between the legs. You don't have much of an option to really pull these legs apart. They're in quite a sort of restrictive pose, and because it's sort of like a weapon support battery in a way. So it's not expected to be, you know, running at full flank speed or whatever that the Warhound can, very fast sort of Titan. Its main role is really just to sort of waddle into position and then absolutely bombard the enemy. I'll show you one of the weapons compared to the Warhound's weapons. I'm not going to do a comparison of him next to a Reaver or a Warlord, but I just thought I'd show you him next to like the next one up in a way, and considering their sort of similar prices. So these are the weapons. As you can see, the Magna las cannon actually looks bigger than the plasma blast gun. So one would assume that it's a destroyer weapon, but that's not the case. It's not a destroyer weapon. So that's sort of like the weapon size. It's bigger, basically. What we'll do is we'll just move the Warhound out of one way, and we'll talk about the rules. So the Acastus Knight Porphyrion will set you back 495 points. Its weapon skills 4, ballistic skills 5, which is just great. Its strength is 10, its front arm is 14, its side is 13, and its rear is 12, which I think is the same as a Warhound Titan. But obviously it doesn't have its 2 void shields. Its initiative is 3, it's got 3 attacks, and it's got 8 hull points, which is great. It's essentially 1 less than a Thunderhawk gunship. It is a super heavy walker, and it is a Lord of War choice. So the Lords of War choice is getting quite packed as of late, with a Mastodon and a Stormbird and all those kind of things. It's got the 2 twin-linked Magna las cannons, and 2 autocannons, which can be exchanged by las cannons, but you have to pay 10 points for. So then that pushes it past the 500 point marker, so it's 505 points. But the Helios defence missiles are free, which does seem a bit odd that the missiles are way better, but the las cannon isn't that much better than the autocannon, but yet you have to pay, so that is odd. It's got the Ironstorm missile pod, so you can load it out with the different missiles, and it has an iron shield as well. Now at the moment, it can be taken as a Lord of War choice in a Mechanicum Tagmata or Knights Questoris army. So they're the only 2 ways it can be taken. So obviously 30k only right now. It's such a lovely model, and like many other sort of Horus Heresy models, I'm pretty sure it'll come to 40k, or they'll release rules for it at some point. So it being a super heavy walker, it has the following special rules: Fear, Hammer of Wrath, Invincible, Behemoth, Move Through Cover, Relentless, Smash and Strike Down. You can give it Ocular Augmetics, which is plus 10 points, and basically you can re-roll results of a 1 on the vehicle damage table and destroy a weapon attack table, which are inflicted by shooting attacks of 12 inches or less. So that's decent, but obviously there's the 12-inch rule there going on. Not only can you upgrade its autocannon for an Irad Cleanser for free, which doesn't come in the pack, you can upgrade it for the las cannon like I mentioned for 10 points, and change Ironstorm missiles for the Helios defence missiles for free. So the household rank for Questoris Knight only, subject to the household rank special rule, can grant it an altercation to its basic profile and additional special rules shown in Questoris Knight Crusade Army special rules, but may not be chosen for the rank of Scion Aspirant or Scion Urlan. There you go. And then Blessed Autosimulacra for Mechanicum, obviously. Basically, if it's suffered hull point damage at the end of controlling player's turn, roll a d6, and on a 6, 1 hull point is restored. So that's pretty cool. And then obviously it's got the Iron Shield, which is a 4+ invulnerable save, and you choose, front, left, right, or rear. Now, let's talk about its weapons finally. So the Magna Las Cannon, I initially thought it'd be a D weapon. But it's not as good as you'd expect. I thought it would have the Melter rule, it being a Magna las cannon, sort of like a superheated, supercharged laser basically, but it's not a turbo laser or anything of the sort, but it's got this Magna las cannon name. Now its range is 72 inches, which isn't amazing. Again, I was expecting sort of like 100 inches or something like that, but the strength is 10, which is fantastic. Its AP's 2, it's an Ordnance 2 shot and a large blast of 5 inches. Now that's incredible. I mean, again, I was expecting AP 1, but you get 2 shots from a Magna las cannon, and it's got 2 twin-linked Magna las cannons. So you've got 4 shots at ballistic skill 5 that can re-roll because they're twin-linked, and they're 4 large blasts. It's pretty much going to hit the target with that ballistic skill and the size of it being ordnance and all the rest of it. That's going to be quite devastating for Titans, which normally have armour 14 or 13 at the sides. It's going to be devastating for Land Raiders. I just wish it had sort of like an extra sort of like little special rule in there in terms of it being Magna, like it debilitated the vehicle or unit, like the heat from it sort of gave them shaken or stunned on a roll of a different DC. I just wish there was something sort of like extra, rather than, oh, it's this strength, it's this AP, and there you go. But it is what it is. Lance cannons, we all know. Autocannons, we all know. Now the Ironstorm missile pod, now that's 72-inch range for just the Ironstorm, and that's only strength 6, AP 4, ordnance 1, but it's a massive 7-inch blast. So again, that's a bit lackluster for the missile. Maybe it's, with these small missiles, which apparently are the Ironstorm, for this model, I know it's probably sort of trying to represent that it fires all of them, and then it's a big 7-inch blast. But I'd rather say that these big missiles would be them, where it fires one of these and it creates a big 7-inch blast. Bit lackluster that it's only one shot, 7-inch blast. An AP4 is, yeah, I mean, you're going to probably be wounding on 2s, and if you're against Orcs Eldars, then they're going to be in trouble and things. You can change it, however, to the Helios defence missiles. You lose a bit of range, it's 60 inches, but it's still pretty decent. However, you get strength 8, AP 2, heavy 2, Skyfire, Interceptor. Again, I would have loved to have seen sort of twin linked or something like that, but with it being heavy 2, you're basically getting 2 crack missiles at a better range that can fire at obviously ground and flyers. So this is a great little unit to have with you if you don't have any anti-air in your Mechanicum army or your Knight army. You know, if you have quite a few Knights, Mechanicum Knights, maybe 1 or 2 of them have the autocannons on the carapaces. This gives you a great stable platform to carry some anti-air, you know, 2 60-inch range missiles, Skyfire and Interceptor on something that's got 8 hull points with its iron shield. It's going to survive a fair amount of punishment. It being super heavy also means that can track a target and fire at a flyer or whatever separately, and you can concentrate these 2 bad boys on, you know, the armour or even Terminators or something like that. You know, because with strength 10, you're going to be causing some damage to, you know, blobs of Terminators. You could blow up the Land Raider with all of its shots, and then the next turn, if they're not in cover or whatever, go for Terminators. That's if the other guy hasn't brought any Knights and things to the battle. So there you go, that's just a little bit of the rules and the tactics and things. The model, absolutely fantastic model. If you love big robots and if you love you know, Knights, and if you've got a couple of Acastus Knights that look a little bit out of place with these Knights, that sort of bridges the gap as well. It gives you a fully shooty Knight here. It just does seem a little bit odd that the Magna Lascannons don't have a little bit of spice added to them, or even Destroyer or something like that, especially when, you know, you're getting your normal Knights with a Reaper Chainsword that is Destroyer, or the Gauntlet or something like that. I mean, this is supposed to be the long range sort of shooty Knight, but yet only 72-inch range, and doesn't have any sort of like special abilities in that regard for its shooting. I think another special rule that it could have that would be unique would be brace for firing, or where it braces, where it locks down its feet, and then it improves its ballistic skill, which obviously it can't because it's 5. They're sort of like the 2 things I'd say that it was missing. Something to do with the Magna Lascannons, like a little special rule, and also something to do with its main battlefield role of heavy fire support, where it sort of locks down and is in defensive mode, rather than just a walker that has you know, some slightly different weapons than what we've seen before. But that being said, it's absolutely fantastic model. I really have enjoyed building it over the holiday period, and now I'm going to go away, spray all the parts separately, make a good start on it, and hopefully it'll be ready for the update video. Now, price wise, I'll probably say that it's just about worth it. It might be £20–30, a bit too more expensive, but it is a full resin kit. It weighs a fair bit, and it doesn't even have its armour plates and things on, and it will definitely give you a few days of you know, hobby goodness in terms of sort of building it and constructing it, and it does give you some options for magnetising. So it's a really nice model to build. Not too much skill involved, I'd say. If you're sort of new to it, the only problems you'll have is probably the knees and the hips. I don't think you'll have any problems with anything else. So it's quite a good kit for a sort of inexperienced hobbyist as well. And that is the end of my review. I think I've said everything I possibly can about this amazing model. Thank you for joining me today. It really does mean a lot. Thank you for watching, and the Emperor protects.